And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of Outdoor Journal Radio.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the program. Another exciting episode of Outdoor Journal Radio, the podcast. He is Peter Bowman.
Hi.
And I'm Angelo Viola, in case you were wondering.
Do you remember who did that voice there? Or is that a computer voice that do welcome to the show there? Did you have an announcer come in and do all that stuff, or how'd that work? Because he just should be saying the Outdoor Journal Radio podcast. You know what I mean? He says the show, and I'm thinking we should have that modernized. Outdoor Journal Radio podcast. That's what he should say.
Dean, make a note.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean.
People on the YouTube right now don't know what we're talking about because that gets flagged for copyright. That song.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just to let everybody know, watching YouTube, we just have this whole intro, audio intro. This guy comes on, and the geese are honking, and the wombats are going crazy.
So none of that
and all
plays
that
on
stuff.
YouTube.
No, because the
See, pretty good,
Superman
eh?
song.
I brought that all up.
The Superman song in the background gets flagged.
Why? It's free domain. It's
Apparently not.
Apparently
yeah,
not.
it is.
We can fight it, but
Don't you have enough fights in your life, Ange, right now? How many are you going through right now, do you think? How many fights you figure you got going?
Right now on the agenda.
Yeah, and that people don't know about. You don't have to say what they are, just numbers.
I think none.
Well, you got some stuff that you're fighting with somebody, against
Fight.
somebody, like lawyer stuff and anything like that. You know what I mean?
I got none.
Oh,
I got none. Right now, I have no encumbrances in terms of litigation.
the NRA, weren't they?
The NRA?
you got something against the NRA?
Oh, no, that's the National Rifle Association.
That's correct.
I was thinking the money people.
Oh, the IRS.
The IRS.
Yeah,
You're right.
see?
You're
See?
right.
I knew it.
You know what?
There's always something going on in the background with that guy right there. Always something going on with that guy.
Can I talk about the IRS, by the way? But before I do that,
Am I stupid?
I because it's a funny story, and I need to
It
share
is
that.
good.
With,
It is a
with
good
you
one.
both.
Absolutely.
Before I do that, though, I have to tell you guys, I had an incredible experience this morning on the way to work that blew me away. Simple little experience. It wasn't a big deal, but it moved me. I got to tell you, I'm driving about one block from my house. I'm driving up the street, and I see in the middle of the road that there is something eating something. I just don't know what it is. And as I get closer, it dawns on me that this is a very large bird.
This is not my board.
This is a huge bird, and it was a golden eagle in the middle of Cartridge Drive
In Oshawa.
in Oshawa.
Or Whitby, or wherever it is. Right?
Eating a rabbit, like a roadkill rabbit. And I eased up to it, and it looked up at me with those big, beautiful golden eyes. It was magnificent.
Wow.
It was just a massive bird. And just about when I'm right next to it, this other car was coming down the other lane, and it spooked him, and he just opened those wings up. And I swear to God, his wingspan, it was the size of this desk.
Wow.
It was just, and he just, whew,
With the rabbit.
with the rabbit in his
God.
talons, and it's just lifting up like
Lunch.
a helicopter.
Nice.
And off it goes. In the middle of the city.
Wow.
Blew my
You could
mind.
probably, if you kill another rabbit and put it in the middle of the road again, he might come back for more.
That's not a bad idea. And
You know
get
what I'm saying?
This time, the idiot that I am would take some
You
shots.
had
I
your
was-
phone with you, didn't you?
Of course, but I was so in awe of what I was experiencing live. I didn't want to take away from that moment to get my phone out, and then, I just didn't want to do that.
You could get our good friend Bova to kill the rabbit, because now he's on a killing spree. You know, he knows how to do
Good point.
a kill thing for us.
point.
So Bova just killed a yellow jacket here, because we were not going to run the podcast without that yellow jacket dying, because he's going to sting one of us. So Bova, being the taller of us two men, could reach it, and I couldn't reach it. So Bova
Which means we
volunteered.
cannot put the disclaimer out that no animals were hurt during the taping of this show.
That's right. And we were taping it at the time, so Dean has that audio bit. If anybody wants to spend $4.30, they can have that sent to them. Right?
The IRS, on the other hand.
I heard him too.
Okay. I'm having a bit of difficulty. It's a 2-year-old problem. I just share this with you because sometimes you hear things and you got to go, wait a minute. That's got to be made up. There's no way that that's real.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
Exactly.
Jimmy Conde says it best.
Exactly.
Always says it best.
Yeah, Jimmy would have had a ball with this thing.
You should have that voice when she does and
When
just
they
push
say,
the button. And then
just push the button. That's a bunch of bullshit.
And you go, where did that come from? What was that? But the Jimmy, I know that name.
So get this: the IRS owes me money, and
That's the U.S. version of our
CRA.
CRA.
So the IRS owes me money, and it's 2 years old, this debt that they have with me. So 2 years ago, I started getting on their case saying, hey, like, where's my goods, right? I need my money. Oh, yeah. I see that we don't have a mailing address for you. And the last time the check was put in the mail, it went out with no mailing address. It just went out with the name of the city. Well, that's kind of odd because you've been mailing me stuff for the last 22 years. What do you mean now you have no mail? Anyways, sorry, sir, something happened here. I'm going to put it in right now. Boom. We're going to reissue the check. If you don't get it, in 9 weeks, call us.
9 weeks.
9 weeks? What do you mean? Whoa. What do you mean 9 weeks? That's like over 2 months. Yes, sir. Unfortunately, the mail service is not very quick between U.S. and Canada.
Blaming the mail.
What is it, Pony Express? 9 weeks?
Awesome.
The Pony Express was quicker than that. But anyways, That's okay because you can't argue with these folks because they'll hang up on you, right? I know that from experience. Anyways, to make a long story short, 5 times now in the last 2 years, I'm getting the same excuse from them. And that is that they don't have my mailing address. But what's remarkable about this, think about this. So, first of all, for 22 years, I had no issues getting mail from them, getting checks from them. Now they can't seem to mail me a check because they have no mailing address. However, in between all of these discussions I have with them, I get mail from them. Not check mail, not mail with checks in it, just other mail. They have an address for that. They just don't have it for the check mail. You talk about frustration. And you can't, like, you want to reach through the phone and say, look it.
Can they e-transfer you? Is there a way
They
of doing
could
that?
have had we started the transaction that way, but now that the transaction is via check.
You're going to change your ways from now on if you can?
no
Absolutely.
kidding.
Okay.
If I ever get paid.
Right.
Like, how do you deal with this stuff? So we now have an ombudsman
Ombudsman, yes.
that is supposedly going to look into this.
You need to call Donald Trump.
2
You
years.
need to call Donald Trump when he
By
gets
the way,
back in.
I don't want to make this a political issue, but
Soon
when
as
Donald
Biden
was
took
in,
over?
no, as soon as Biden came in, I had a problem getting money.
Yeah, he's saving
That's all I wanna
he's
say.
saving a bit of tax dollars.
Not-
Interest.
It has nothing to do
Interest.
with politics. I don't want to do that. So, anyways, I thought I would share that with you. Anybody else having problems
you.
like that, let us know. I want to know.
Yeah. Or if you've seen a golden eagle in your street.
Or have you seen a beagle with a golden
Golden rabbit.
rabbit?
Yeah.
That would work too.
Eyes of an eagle and balls of a beagle.
Wonderful program today. A gentleman will be joining us. His name is Dave Stewart. He is the host of Wet Fly Swing, one of the
Podcast,
premier podcasts in the fly fishing fraternity. And,
Been at her a long time, that's for
been
sure.
at her. He's got 600 episodes. Wonderful guy. We're going to meet him a little later on in the program.
How many episodes we got, Dean?
This is 119.
Oh, there it is right there, right in front of my
Yeah.
face.
Right there.
Wow, that guy's got a lot. He's 6 times more experience than us in the podcast world.
That's right.
And we're busy at it. Holy
And we're
crap.
exactly. But he does a weekly show just like we do.
No, 3 times a week.
Oh, he does 3.
3 times a week. That's what he's. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You the man.
No.
Well, he says he has 3 interviews a
He
week.
has 3 interviews, but he says
Oh,
puts out a show a
Right,
week.
right. Yeah, you're right.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you trying to screw me up? Like, it's not hard
It's
enough.
exciting for the audience.
It's fun. It is.
Oh,
for
the
us
guys,
too,
for
eh,
the
Dean?
audience.
Yeah, it's
For
all
us too.
entertainment.
Okay, by the way,
It's
you
all
look
about it.
lovely in that new set. Have I told you that before?
This is my first time on camera with it, I think.
You just look
really?
so. You
Yeah.
look so stately.
Thank
I
you.
think is what it
It
is.
fits this this podcast is the one with all this in the background too.
Right.
It almost seems intentional, right?
You figure it is?
Is that what it is?
Fly fishing podcast. The flies behind me.
Yeah.
You know what? We never. You know what we should have done? We should have done a close up. Yeah, so that when he comes on, he'll see that we're serious about fly fishing. Like he'll say, "Oh man, these guys are real."
Yeah,
We should have had you guys back here.
We should have moved into your studio. We could have done that.
You could have put those over here for your new redecoration.
Yeah, I could have. I wonder how many people will even notice if you hadn't just said that we have.
Probably
some.
nobody, because I didn't notice. You know that.
You don't.
But mind you, they see it more than I do, right? So anybody's doing when Angelo, he's done you want to write in and say, Angelo, you did a great job. Wow, does that wall ever look fantastic, Angelo? You did a great job, because he's already said it for himself too. So
The store, Fishing Canada store. We have some new items.
Give me a hell yeah!
Some new items that we're all excited about. The first time ever have we kind of played around with the Fishing Canada logo.
Look at there, look at there.
We played around with the Fishing Canada logo, and now we have some very, very, very cool.
I'm liking this.
I like it.
I'm liking this. You've left out the largemouth bass, but you know.
We got it. We got largemouth.
No, but he's not up here. I mean,
No, he's not up here.
You know, it's kind of.
But we have largemouth as well.
You know, you're profiling the fish, I think.
You figure?
Yeah.
By dropping it out?
Yeah.
We're saying
he's got too big a mouth.
Something.
He's got too big a mouth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we should look and write it down. We'll present it to our committee and see.
Micropterus salmoides. It should say them in there, just in case anybody was wondering what the scientific name. Could put that in there.
Very nice. The boys are doing a good job. I like
Very
that.
good.
You'll love
like
those
the graphics.
the new garments. They're absolutely wonderful. All available at the store at fishingcanada.com. Or if you're used to going through the back door.
Oh my.
Thank you.
That's an inside joke. Anybody? That was good.
If you're
that was
used
good.
to that, you can go to shop.fishingcanada.com. But honestly, like, why would you do that?
You guys are brilliant.
Why would you do that?
Why not?
Go through the front door, and then you get to experience all this wonderful stuff. Like news, for example. We got all kinds of great news stuff on .com. We got all kinds of.
How's our new writer working out? Has he got anything going yet?
I think he's going to be
He's
good.
on his way. Good.
Yeah, he's going to be a little tardy on his deliveries, but
What's tardy mean? What does that mean?
a little slow.
Okay.
Not that he's a little slow.
No.
It's just his production.
Demeanor, his production.
He's an artist. There's a process.
He's an artist. Thank you. He's an artist.
He's an artist. Yes.
So you can't rush things.
Okay.
But, he's good.
Okay.
So we'll introduce him. Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to introduce him.
After his first article is up on the site.
We're going to bring him on the podcast, and we're going to talk with him.
And we're going to talk about his tardiness.
Yes.
For sure. I like that.
Okay. Because he'll have some good stories about the old
he's
days,
got some good stories, that guy.
Mark
I think we should
that
get him
down,
to write. We should get him to write some of our the Cambridge Bay shoot. It'd be a great little piece on the website.
Oh, what
That'd be
a
good
great
one.
story that was.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Anyways, it's all happening at fishingcanada.com and the store, Fishing Canada store.
Yes.
Listener feedback, Mr. Bowman.
Did you remind everybody that our Fishing Canada show? Did you say that? I don't remember you.
No, we don't need
Don't
to
need
do
it.
that anymore.
Okay, redundancy.
No,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, listener feedback from D. Sharsky. Is that right? Charsky or
Charsky.
Charsky? D. Charsky.
Charsky.
Via Apple Podcasts. 5-star rating. Thank you, D. Charsky. That was awesome. You guys are great, and every once in a while, hilarious.
He
With a smiley face.
He didn't want to see. He
With a
didn't
smiley
want to.
face beside it.
Yeah, he didn't want to overstate it, right? So,
Well,
he
we're
says-
not hilarious every minute of the podcast, Edge. Every once in a while.
He says every once in a while you're hilarious. Okay, all right.
He's being funny. He's hilarious. I think he's funnier than we are. When you think about that, he's got a little joke in there. You're taking offense to that. He's giving a compliment, and you're
No,
kinda
I'm not taking offense. I'm
Well,
just
you
curious
kinda
how
are.
you can say every once in a while. We do our best. We try, but not always.
Thank you, D. Charsky.
Evidently, not always successful.
Charsky. I like that.
Also, if you go to fishingcanada.com, apparently we highlight our podcast network there.
Give me a hell yeah!
You figure?
Well, apparently, according to my book here, We do talk about all of our various
There's a chaga.
podcasters on.
There's a chaga right there. Look at. Yeah, somebody was trying to tell me a mushroom on a tree the other day was a chaga, and I said, no, that's not a chaga, but I couldn't find one to show them. But they were all those
even
little
look like
mushrooms. No, not even close.
Not even close.
No, that's not. No.
Anyways,
Don't
Under the
eat that.
Canopy, which is one of our very successful podcasts. By the way, this is an interesting fact. Under the Canopy is either, in the top 5, but sometimes second, even has been first in its category in Canada on the podcast stratosphere.
What's the category? Dean, what is the category that?
Nature.
Nature.
Yep.
Nature.
Wow.
Yep.
Good for Jerry.
So
Good for
sometimes
him.
it's the most listened to podcast under the nature category.
That's
in
awesome.
The nation.
And I saw it on the TV at the gym the other day. Popped
No!
up on the screen
You
of the
told me
gym.
that, yeah.
How?
They highlight nature podcasts in that category every week. And because he was number 1, it just like scrolled past all the podcasts and it highlighted the one right next to him. But he was on the screen.
Did you tell him?
Yeah, I did.
That's
That's
hilarious.
hilarious. Anyways,
my God, poor Jerry.
if you go there, you'll see that we've got episode 40 highlighted for you. It's cooking with medicinal herbs and spices with Chef Antonio Malaca, who also happens to be one of our other podcasters on Eating Wild.
Come on now.
Part of our network.
So they're collaborating now.
collabing.
Our artists are collaborating.
That's a good thing. Well, when Jerry was on their podcast at the Sportsman Show, that was very entertaining. That was a really good podcast. Remember that one?
No, I was too busy.
Well, you can listen to. You're supposed to listen to it anyway.
I'm
You don't
trying
have to
to
listen
catch
live. You were busy there signing autographs and kissing babies. Now you got
I'm trying to catch up.
stay with the network, bro. It's your network, bro. Come on.
What do we got? Dairy Stars and most of the Eating Wild Pie. Done. Good. Check it out. It's all there at fishingcanada.com, apparently, according to Dean.
Hey, in the news, there's the title, Human CWD Scare Turns Out to be a False Alarm. So this is it brought up concerns of chronic wasting. Go ahead.
So to Dean's credit, I have to say something because he approached me with this story several weeks ago.
Yes.
And he said that he heard this and that, and here's the story as it's developing. And I said, great, put it up on .com. I mean, we're always at the leading edge of breaking news like this. And he said, nah, I don't know. I think I'm going to let it breathe for a little while. There's some things I'm not comfortable with, so we'll let it breathe before I put it up. And lo and behold, he was right.
So what did he have before versus now?
Well, there was a lot of initial reports as soon as the study came out that were they said it's confirmed now humans can get CWD from deer meat.
At the time that Dean told me about this, it was still very
Not
much
confirmed.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were going to put it up there as holy mackerel, look what's going on.
Which a lot of places did, by the way.
Exactly, but not us.
So the story
us.
goes that there were 2 hunters that consumed venison, correct?
Yep.
For over a
Consume-
period of time.
And these 2 hunters passed away. So the first thing is that everybody's going, chronic wasting disease. It can affect humans. It is a bad thing. It is this and that and the other and the other. But obviously that was when everybody's reporting, that's what they were saying. It got into it that it was a neurological disease. However, it wasn't CWD. It was
Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
CJD.
CJD, which is
CJD.
Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
Which is a prion disease, is a brain disease, prion disease. Yeah. It's like mad cow, apparently.
Yeah.
So certain proteins in the brain begins to fold abnormally, causing brain damage and other symptoms. And obviously, they're thinking that this caused their death. Now, the weird part about it was, did they prove it, Dean, that it was that killed them?
Yeah.
It was that killed them.
Yeah, they both had it.
And they both, how close did they die within time-wise?
They died.
know?
So this was part of the controversy that made me not want to post it right away because they consumed the same deer from the same lodge that was confirmed later to have CWD in the area. But the incubation period of CWD, I think, is over like 20 years.
Right.
And it wasn't 20 years ago that they ate this. I think it was like 10 years ago. Or even less than that.
Less than that.
Yeah,
Right.
even less than that.
Yeah.
So it didn't really make sense right off the bat that would have killed them. So like they've probably had this CJD in their body for like 20 years plus.
So did the deer have CWD as well?
Yep.
Yes.
It did.
Both.
Yep.
Oh my
But
God.
No, not both. It had CWD.
CJD? What is that then?
CJD is what the two men actually died of.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
It didn't
I
come
got
from
you.
the deer.
No.
Did not. Okay.
Right?
Okay. I thought when he said it was like a mad cow disease, maybe that was a
No.
some
it's
kind
a
of relation to
totally-
all this meat
totally
stuff.
unrelated, separate thing. This is what
Wow.
they actually died of.
So weird,
But
eh?
the original report said that they died of CWD.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Dean, in his divine wisdom,
Said there's something wrong here. Nobody
said
dies
this
from that
doesn't
stuff.
sound right.
They don't die from that shit around here anymore.
Well, no, they never did.
Never did. So yeah. So they got to figure.
Well, because to me, it's pretty scary. Because I mean,
I'm not laughing, by the way, at the.
because if
No,
they found
they
out that
died.
this was transferable to humans, the hunts would be banned pretty quick. I think.
of course.
Like it's.
Oh, Angie, we'll put the beat on that guy walking there. Yeah. I
Yeah,
get
so
you.
it's kinda
They
scary
They say so. In this CJD, is that where there are 350 cases are diagnosed every year in the
Yeah,
U.S.?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
I wonder if there's. That's just the U.S. Did they say anything about Canada? Did they say anything like
No,
that?
it's super rare though. I mean, that's why it is kind of suspicious that two people who were like lifelong hunting buddies did both get it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think it's like 1 in a million chance of getting it. So it is kind of weird that two buddies got it, but yeah,
Quite a story.
yeah.
The story behind the story is that man right there, he knew not to publish it. Right?
Oh, he's good.
It's true.
Nobody's
It's
ever
true.
doubted. You
To
watch.
give yourself
you
a
watch-
hell yeah or something.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
You watch
Jeez.
because today's show is a perfect example of how smart Dean is because their show is going to be very fly fishing concentric. And Dean, as much of a spin and bait caster guy as we know him as, he is quite the fly fisher. So he will probably be showing some of his, if we can get him involved in the interview a little bit, I think he'll show you that he deserves a raise in pay.
Sam D.
That went by very quick, didn't it, Dean?
Agostino.
Sorry, buddy, I tried.
Sam D. Agostino from Alberta, via email, incidentally, submitted the fan question to us this week. He submitted it to info@fishingcanada.com, in case you're wondering, for all of you sitting out there saying, how come I can't get any questions answered? My dad, God bless him before he passed away,
He emailed
he
us.
used to say to my mom, how come so-and-so, we don't see so-and-so anymore? How come we don't see so-and-so? And this guy, and that guy, my mom used to say, you fool. What do you think? They're just going to come walking through your living room? In order to see all these people, you got to get up off that chair and get out and go to see them. Well, some folks might be sitting there saying, how come Dean never gets one of my questions for the boys to answer? Well, in order to do that, you needs to write it into us.
Come on now.
Info.
What if they are writing in
Info.
and they're still not getting published? What's the deal then?
Well, then they
It's
got
a
a
bad
problem
question.
with Dean. They need
It's
to
a
talk to
bad
Dean.
question.
Bad
there
question.
it is. Then it's a
There
bad
are bad
question.
questions.
There are? What designates a good question from a bad question?
That question is like, what's the biggest bass you've caught?
That's a bad question?
It was a good question in our first 5 episodes.
Right.
But now it's a bad question.
We've grown a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah. Now we
Okay.
do very intelligent questions.
Like
Very
this one right here.
sophisticated.
Like this one right here.
So that's speaking of sophisticated questions. Sam D'Agostino from Alberta says, as we see inflation, taxes, and gas prices rise, will there be less and less people getting out on the water? There you go. That's a very
think
deep,
that's-
deep question.
It's a very good question, and I think, let's be honest, there has to be a point where people can't afford it. And I mean, getting out on the water is 2 things. You can walk down the bank, right? You can drive your bicycle to the bank of a river and fish. That's very cost effective. Or you can get in your truck, like we're going to do this year, and drive up to northwestern Ontario, dragging a boat behind us with a 250
Or New Brunswick.
horsepower,
Or New Brunswick. Or Nova Scotia.
Or Nova Scotia.
You drive all over the place.
Or we're flying to Northwest Territories, but
Right.
but all that's at a cost. And yeah, you're right. That is very hard to afford that. you know, that's you need to save some bucks up for that deal, right?
Do you know what, though, all honesty, and I don't want to downplay the fact that there's so much pressure on everybody out there with regards to the cost of living. I don't want to downplay that, but I remember 30, 40 years ago saying the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saying
House
the
prices,
same thing.
everything.
How in the hell can people afford to go fishing with taxes where they are, with gasoline prices where they are, like with mortgages? So I don't want to downplay but it is.
No, it's huge. But I think
it's
you know, like
ongoing.
you be careful with your money throughout.
Of course.
The non-fish. If you're a nutcase like myself, if you're a nutcase about fishing and you want to get out there, and my truck pulls my boat and all that, and it's expensive. Well, then I don't go and blow my money on something else. I try to save my money and sort of put it towards my fishing, so that you know you can kind of I don't know. Just save a bit, you know, to do something. Yeah. I'm not giving up my fishing.
No.
So I might give up something else. I'm not giving up my fishing.
Isn't that funny?
You know what I mean?
We learned that during the pandemic, right? That fishing was one of those things that it's uncompromised. You know, a lot of things, we gave up a lot of things during the pandemic as a community, but fishing wasn't one of them. In fact, statistics tell us that the activity actually increased during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
I remember towards the end of it, when we were still, just towards the end where they're saying people can't even sit in the same car and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? At one point where there's some Mikey Burris and we wanted to fish together. We brought 2 boats. We said, piss on it. We're going to take the expense. We're going to, you know, and we went side by side for a while, shooting the shit with each other. And then he'd go over there, I'd go over here. We got back and talk, and we reported to you. Yeah, it was you know, we just said, we're not letting the pandemic stop us. We're not letting gas prices stop us. We're going fishing.
So you increase the cost.
Yeah.
The hell with the cost.
That's
we're going to double
saying.
them up.
That's what I'm saying. We're gonna when your mind is set to do it, that's what you do, right? You just save your money somewhere else.
All right. The humble goldfish, everyone's favorite aquatic pet. It's small, easy to care for. What's there not to love?
Even the cat may be mesmerized by the color and movements of your aquarium friends. Goldfish are great at home, but don't let them loose.
Releasing goldfish or other domestic aquatic pets or plants into natural environments is harmful to both your pet and the planet.
Goldfish disrupt ecosystems by outcompeting native species for food and resources in degraded habitats. They contribute to algae blooms, they kill aquatic wildlife, and pass viruses and diseases contracted in aquariums to wild fish.
They could even live up to 40 years and grow as big as a football. Anglers, this is where you come in. If you find a goldfish at your local fishing spot, report it to the Invading Species Hotline or go online to eddmaps.com.
Remember to never dump your live bait into the water and risk spreading other aquatic invaders. Keep our lakes free from invaders and don't let them loose.
As the world gets louder and louder, the lessons of our natural world become harder and harder to hear, but they are still available to those who know where to listen. I'm Jerry Ouellette, and I was honored to serve as Ontario's Minister of Natural Resources. However, my journey into the woods didn't come from politics. Rather, it came from my time in the bush and a mushroom. In 2015, I was introduced to the birch-hungry fungus known as chaga, a tree conch, with centuries of medicinal use by indigenous peoples all over the globe. After nearly a decade of harvest, use, testimonials, and research, my skepticism has faded to obsession, and I now spend my life dedicated to improving the lives of others through natural means. But that's not what the show's about. My pursuit of this strange mushroom and my passion for the outdoors has brought me to the places and around the people that are shaped by our natural world. On Outdoor Journal Radio's Under the Canopy podcast, I'm going to take you along with me to see the places and meet the people that will help you find your outdoor passion and help you live a life close to nature and under the canopy. Find Under the Canopy now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
Alrighty then, let's move on. Our guest today is a fellow podcaster. His name is Dave Stewart, as I mentioned at the top of the program, a host of Wet Fly Swing podcast. Welcome to the program. How are you, buddy?
Thanks, guys. Awesome. It's great to be here.
Love your background.
2017, you've been at this, Dave. Since 2017. Yeah. I didn't even know.
We've been going strong.
When has the first podcast ever been invented? Anybody have any idea?
I have no idea, but that's got to be close. Like
17.
No, not even close. Actually, I know the podcast history pretty well. So it was more like 2005.
Really?
Yeah, the first one. Yeah, going way back. But 2011, 10, 11, 12, it really started getting to what we know it and really growing to the mainstream.
Okay.
I told this story before in the show. What's his name? Steve Labadie.
Yeah.
Our old radio producer. This show used to be a radio show.
Yep.
And so one day after the show, he says, we really, I don't remember, it could have been 14, 15, maybe 16. He says, we really ought to do a podcast with this show.
I could have just heard you. I could have just heard you right there.
What?
Cynical freaking
Podcast. Yeah. I said, what the hell's a podcast? And he says, it's a place where we record the shows and we put them on a shelf and then people can consume them at will. They can go and come and I looked at him and said, are you a total idiot? Why?
How are you going to monetize that?
So you want me to give the audience an opportunity to listen to the show on their terms and their time and cannibalize my live radio show that people have to tune in and listen. And that at the time made so much sense to me. He looked at me, he says, yeah, I guess you're right. And off we went.
Are you guys loving it? Are you loving now looking back on the podcast?
It is fun. It's great format. You know what I mean? It's going to be free for all. If you want to go an hour, you go an hour. You want to go 10 minutes, you go 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a whole different atmosphere for sure. You know what I mean? You don't have our CTRC, whatever you call it, CRTC or whatever they are. Coming after us, I don't think. Anyways,
well,
I don't know what the rules.
They are going to now.
Are they?
Yeah, we've got some new laws in this wonderful country, but we shall not go there.
Oh,
we're
going to break every one of them,
politics,
buddy. We're going to bust them.
So, all right, talk to us. How did this whole thing happen?
600 episodes. He's got over 600 episodes in this deal. So
we're rolling.
Wow, you have it rolling.
I love it. I would guess I love podcasting more than you guys. It's like everything since 2017. Actually, before that, 2015. We also had the Wet Fly Swing blog, and I just love podcasting. I was listening to all these business podcasts and everything. I was just all podcasts. I said, you know what? I'm gonna set a goal. In 2 years, I'm gonna have my own podcast. Just out of nowhere. And 2 years later, December 2017, I launched the Wet Fly Swing podcast, focused on steelhead fly fishing. Our first season was all steelhead. We've expanded out to everything now. I mean, we just did an episode on mako sharks on the fly, and we do hunting and everything. But I started in the success, every week since then, we haven't missed a week, whether holiday, you name it, started out every Tuesday. We were doing episodes, full length interviews. We've gone to now we do 3 full length interviews every week. We've been doing that all year. So we have a lot of content, and I just love talking to people, and it's worked out.
Excellent. Good for you.
The only difference between this and live radio is the fact that, we're not committed to recording this program at a particular time. We do it every week, just like you. Yeah. But radio...
We don't even have to record the program in order.
No.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
or we can group record where we'll do 2 or 3 programs. So that part differentiates the experience from live radio. But otherwise, the rest of it is just great. It feels wonderful. I think it's just a natural progression for us. There is something about live, though, that I keep telling Pete, there's something about live that you just don't get with podcasts, right? There's
true.
That moment you open the door and you hang on the edge and you look down and... Here we go, and you jump out, and that's the only part, right? That's the only part.
We did a live last night. We did a live webinar with, there was few hundred people lined up, and so I do those live things, and it is fun, because you got these questions coming in,
right?
And you're fielding. I mean, there's always that tech issue that could happen. You're always worried that there's going to be something, but the podcast, I have another show I do where I focus on marketing, experts, and I've interviewed some of the best podcasting experts around the country, and just as a tip, one of the things they say about podcasting is the nice thing is that the editing part, people don't think about it, but every little bit of editing he said that you can do to clean it up makes your show that much better.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's something that you can't do live. And so there are certain things as hosts, I have little things I do and everybody where you can actually cut those out and people will never know it and your show will be better.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Without question.
That's true.
Post-production fixes everything. We're in the television world. That's what we do for a living. And
we do a fishing show here in Canada, and we'll shoot days of footage to get it down to 15 minutes on the TV show.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
And 14 days in post-production to do that. Our crew spends 2 weeks in post to come up with that.
Wow, we must make a lot of mistakes out there.
Oh, boy, there's something you don't know anything about. Whoa. Anyways, so fly fishing. So first of all, how did you get into fly fishing? Where did this come from?
Yeah, it's pretty much my entire life. My dad he was a guide. And so I grew up in Oregon, and the Deschutes River is a big river down here. And, I just grew up on the river. I mean, as long as I can remember, I had the fly rod. He was a guide. I was on the river basically teaching adults how to cast way back in the day when I was a little kid, and I slowly got to a point. Yeah. And the podcast, just came around as a nice transition, and it was just the perfect timing. At the time, I remember when we launched the podcast, it was kind of thinking like, wow, it seems like we're late to the game. But actually, in the space, we're still early. I mean, to be honest with you, right now, podcasting is still relatively young. There's a lot of room for growth. But yeah, it started out there. I mean, fishing, steelhead, like I said, was my big species. Trout fishing, rainbows, all that stuff. And I've just been a lifelong outdoorsman, whether that's hunting, trail running, fishing. I love it all. I'm kind of the jack of all trades, but I built this thing around fly fishing.
Where are you based out of?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you the same thing.
Because you said Oregon earlier or whatever. Yeah,
right now. Yeah. So I'm on the coast. I'm literally, I could hear the ocean right from my place. And I'm 2 hours west of Portland, Oregon.
Okay. And you have steelhead rivers that are coming in, sort of thing like that?
Yeah. Within a few minutes, steelhead are right in the backyard.
Perfect.
Fly fishing is one of those, it's much maligned in the angling world, as you probably know, although that's changed in the last 10 years or so, I would think, where it's become a little bit more mainstream, but it's still considered off to the left for most anglers.
And we talk about, I love this conversation because we talk about this a lot in our space.
So
why is that? What do you think? Why is that? I mean, they're majestic fish. They're gorgeous fish. They're stronger than a bass and a pike and a muskie together.
Well, you're assuming it's one dimensional. You're assuming you can only fish trout or salmon.
Yeah, it's everything. Anything you guys can fish, you name a species, and I'll show you a guest I've had on that's fished for that with the fly.
Oh, no, I'm talking about steelhead itself.
Oh, just steelhead,
Steelhead.
Yeah, but steelhead, you don't have to fly fish for them.
No,
steelhead.
No.
But I think I think the difference is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the difference, Dave, is that as we'll call them, spin anglers, right? As opposed to conventional anglers. We tend to be result oriented. In other words, it's not so much the game,
the art.
Exactly. Whereas with fly fishing, I know guys, do you remember Alf Walker, our old buddy?
How could I forget Alf?
It didn't matter whether he ever saw a fish or not. Yeah. He would just get out and practice this wonderful craft that he had honed over years and years of experience, right? And he just wanted to get out and do that thing. And if he got a fish, what a great bonus for him.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see the difference between the two.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, Dave. The catch versus the whole thing. Where are you putting that? Like, do you have to go out and get a catch in there, or is it just like Answer?
You don't have to get a catch for sure, but I think that what I see, and there's tons of people, we talk about this all the time, and there's lots of people that fly fish that also conventional fish. There's lots of people that start out conventional and then they got into fly fishing. Part of it, I think, is that fly fishermen like the pain a little bit, you know what I mean? Like the challenge, because fly fishing, I'm not going to say it's harder than just conventional fishing, but I feel like we try to get to these things like muskie, for example. can you catch muskie on a fly rod? We're setting up a trip to go to Wisconsin this year. I'm going to be flying there and connecting with our listeners. And it's not easy to catch a muskie. Some people might not even catch a muskie the entire time. So why do we do that? Because for the challenge. Right. And then also all that stuff that goes along with it, like just being on the water. I mean, we all appreciate that, right? Outdoors, whether we're sitting here in front of a computer, but would you rather be outdoors on the river? I think everybody would say yes, even if we're not catching fish.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me see if I can dumb this down for me. What you're saying is...
What you're trying to say is...
We know it's going to be harder, or in some cases, damn near impossible for me to catch anything fly fishing. But it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm just there for the game.
But actually and I will say that is, maybe for some is true. We like to catch fish. Trust me. I've gone out in a session. I love catching steelhead. I love catching trout. And there are times when it's easier to catch with the fly. Right, in the right situation. And the technology now, you won't believe, right? The lines, everything has gotten so good that you can catch more fish now. So we go to the Great Lakes and we fish for steelhead, and our guides out there are amazing, and they got these lines that are so dialed in that we can get down to the exact inch of where that fish is holding. Right, so it's different than it used to be. We're not using bamboo rods and silk lines anymore. So I think
some guys
we love to catch fish. I love eating fish. It's.
I'll bet you there's a fish you've never caught on a fly.
One that I haven't caught?
Yeah.
Muskie?
Oh,
have you got a muskie on fly?
Yeah, there's been so many. Actually, to be honest with you, I mean, we're traveling a little bit now, but I've got so many on my bucket list.
You've never caught a walleye, I'll bet.
And that's one I want to catch.
That's I'm told by fly fishers that's probably the most difficult freshwater game fish to target. On a fly.
Yeah, I don't hear about it a lot, but I didn't think it'd be difficult.
Yeah.
But wow.
Yeah, apparently from what I'm Mark and Colin from you know the folks at New Fly Fisher Television?
Oh yeah. We had Colin. Yep, Colin's been on. We've done 3 new Fly Fisher episodes.
Oh, nice. They're good friends of ours.
Great. Yeah, no, Colin's awesome. We actually have our Canadian brothers. We have a in our feed the Littoral Zone podcast is Phil Roy. He's in Canada and he's our Stillwater expert.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
But he's the one that told me, Colin told me that walleye has got to be the most difficult one on his, and he's caught, like you, he's caught just about everything.
He'd know. He's right in Algoma country all the time, right? He's right in Walleye Central. So
walleye for some reason. I don't know why. I mean,
you'd think like on the mayfly hatch, they'd be easier to catch with that, but probably nobody goes for them then with a fly.
I think that's probably what it is.
You know what I mean? Because we're having a difficult time trying to get them when they're eating bugs. But
would you?
I think that's it with walleye. I think it's that they're, and again, you gave me my next episode topic idea, walleye on the fly. So stay tuned. But
there you go.
I think they're deeper. I think they just stay deeper in lakes and things like that, so they're harder to get down to with our fly gear.
You'd be surprised at that. Our summer walleye, we go in a little bit north, and we find not only are they shallower than we always perceived it, the bigger ones are usually shallow in the summer, like shallower, like less than 10 feet of water. You can get them in the middle of the day, even though their eyes are, the whole thing with the light and all that. Yeah. They surprise you sometimes. They're just a predator. They get up shallow and they want to eat, right? The food takes over everything. So it's a bit of a misconception there. So
I think another thing about fly fishing that kind of kept it, as I said, it's considered to the left of center. I think one of the other things that kept it there is that for years, it was you really had to do some searching. This is pre-web. You really had to search to get the product. I mean, just getting rods, reels, lines. Like none of the conventional retailers were selling much of that stuff. So that even kept it kind of exclusive because accessibility for product was almost impossible. That's changed today, I trust. Like you can pretty much get anything anywhere.
It's amazing today. I mean, and we always joke about too the old white guy, right? The fly fisherman is this old yuppity white guy that doesn't want to let anybody in. That's changed. It's gotten more diverse, and it's all about diversity of species and crappie fly fishing in your backyard, right? Go for it. But gear, 100%. I mean, I actually set up a link at wetflyswing.com/OJD, which is a intro to fly fishing. So if anybody wants to get the basics like how to cast, I put a couple of videos in there. So and then there's also a link that says here's where you can get a packaged fly rod. This is from Reddington. There's lots of great brands. Everybody has a good package, but you can get one of these packages, rod, reel, line for under $300. A great rod that's going to last your lifetime.
Same as spinning, then.
Yeah,
I mean, really, in that sense. Yeah. You have to agree, though. You have to agree, no matter how you want to insist that it's easy. You can't tell me that if you take the same scenario, all conditions being the same, that you can teach a person to fly fish quicker or as quick as you can teach them to angle with a spinning gear.
No. The fly cast is the thing, right? So you have to, but again, you can learn it. And one of my tips is, keep it simple, right? So you can learn to fly cast. There's a video on that link that shows you exactly how to fly cast. It's not, everybody makes it harder than it is. It's actually a lot easier than you think.
That I'll have to give you. I agree, because we dabble with it. We don't do it. Yeah. We don't pursue
very dabbly.
I think the last time you and I did a fly fishing
Campbell
show
River
was Campbell River.
Only time I've ever fly fished in my life.
Sockeye, wasn't it?
For pinks, and there was pinks, and there was everything in there. But I think we got most.
It was
of the
a
pinks
blast. We had a great time.
It was fun.
That episode was a real departure in so many levels. I mean, number one, the fact that we were fly fishing for them, but prior to fishing for them, we donned wetsuits, and we actually floated down the Campbell River with snorkel equipment and watched these fish. And my
thousands
God,
of salmon.
Were they swimming like next to your head and stuff?
It was unreal.
We were totally immersed. There was one
unreal.
At one point. I remember, the picture in your mind, right? I remember looking over at him, and he was about, 20, 30 feet away from me, and he was partially obstructed with salmon. Like he was in the middle of it.
So
was
many. See all those bricks in the wall behind us here? They were all salmon.
Yeah.
Every one of those was salmon for 100 feet, 200
that is
feet.
amazing.
And no sign of intimidation or fear.
Yeah, they thought you were a fish.
Yeah, they didn't care.
We just hung in with them. Just slow.
Wow.
They didn't care.
And then we got out, got the rods, and we spanked them with flag gear. So it was very
and there was
cool.
a black bear walking up the shore eating salmon. We had to get out of his way because he was walking through there.
How was the cast for you guys? Was it, to get the line out there?
No, not bad, really.
Yeah.
I got it on quick. He's done it before.
As a kid, I did probably as much of it as spinning. But I'll tell you one thing, though. I will tell you one thing, is that if you've been away from it for a while, it takes a bit of time to get your form back, right? Mm-hmm. To get that nice fluid motion, because it's all about that motion. And when I get away from it, it takes me a bit to get back in the swing of things.
I'll tell you another thing with me on that trip is that I was having I had an easier time learning to cast than I was at getting the fish.
Oh.
I started catching the fish, and I'm concentrating more about the cast than anything, right? Because it's the first day ever doing it. So that when I'm reeling in, what do you call it? Stripping it in, mending it in, whatever like that. I was just basically getting it out there and then just retrieving it, and I wasn't getting anything. Then the guy that was with us, he says, slow it down, let it get deeper. And as soon as he said that, let it get deeper, I thought, okay, now I got to start fishing, using my mind for fishing instead of this. And as soon as I did that, slowed it down, boom, I started catching them too. So it was neat, like setting the hook and pulling, mending the line in like that instead of reeling it in. It was pretty cool, I have to say.
We should do another one. I didn't turn that off. We should do another one.
What's the matter with you?
I thought
that's your windshield guy. That's your boat windshield guy.
Oh, probably.
It is.
It is.
I know him. Hank, that's Hank Branger.
My phone is ringing. Nobody can hear it. It's incognito.
I got a question for Dean Taylor. Dean, our producer here, he fishes both, but I didn't know when Dean first came on, he does fly fishing and conventional. What do you prefer, Dean? Do you prefer one over the other? Is it harder, one harder the other? What's your thoughts?
I like fly fishing way better. But
See?
I grew up.
There you go.
I grew up fishing tournaments and I guided conventional. I never fly fished as a guide.
Right.
So now it's just kind of a new challenge. I've only been fly fishing probably 8 years.
Oh.
So I'm relatively new in that world.
Okay.
I think we were talking before about what's most intimidating, and for me it was the culture. Fly fishing culture is I get it's changing a little bit, but it's depending on what parts of the internet you live, it's not super inviting.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. You need your Orvis backpack and your special
and your
this
vest.
and all that.
Ascot tie.
Yeah, dry flies only and the whole deal.
And there will always be some of that, but I can tell you after interviewing all these people, from biggest names to smallest names, it just comes up a lot that we all understand that stuff has gone on and it's out there. But I think it's just like the environmental stuff. We need to focus on it and get rid of some of the stuff that's hurting us, right? And so I think that I agree 100%. You have this thing out there, but I know myself. I'm one of the largest fly fishing podcasts in the U.S., and we talk about it a lot. Like, we understand, like, when those trolls are out there, and you have trolls whether you're in whatever industry, right? There's always going to be trolls. And you can't do anything about that. But I do feel like we are working our way to a better place.
Is there like a cool factor now in the fly fishing now, where it's getting very hip, very younger people, kind of a cool thing to do?
It's like a hipster atmosphere.
I just actually, Hooké. Have you guys ever heard of the brand Hooké? It's up out of Quebec. So I just interviewed them yesterday, and Fred is an amazing guy. He's got connections to some of the indigenous folks and things like that. But we talked about this whole conversation, and he said, like, on the rivers now fishing for Atlantic salmon, which used to have a lot of money to fish and catch Atlantic salmon. Now there's all sorts of young hipsters out there doing it, and because we've made it easier for people to get into. You don't have to spend $10,000 on a trip to fish for Atlantic salmon, right? So I do feel like there's a lot of that.
Dave, do we have a handle on the number of folks who pursue fly fishing for their angling fix versus standard anglers, spin anglers? Do we have a percentage or a number?
I think it's roughly, again, I'm going to highlight we had ASA, the Sport Fishing Association on recently, and they talked about it, but I believe it's something like, I want to say 7 million, in the U.S. at least, 7 million fly anglers. And then I think the conventional is like 100 million or something like that.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Maybe it's even bigger. Yeah. But it's a 10% or even less. I don't even know.
Just under two digit, which you know what, isn't bad, because I remember back when I was in the retail industry, it wasn't even, I don't even think it was a single digit number. So it has come a long way. But what's exciting about that I would think for anybody who's into it, is that it's got so much room to grow.
Yeah.
If all you have to do, and let me ask you that question too, because I'm always thinking in terms of marketing.
Oh yeah.
Is the industry focused on converting or introducing new?
Right. I think it's always been trying to do both, but I feel like it's converting. Like, I think people are still, especially trips and more expensive stuff, like, hey, we know these people that have been in it for 10 years are going to buy the $500, the $1,000 rod. So that's where we can get our money. Although, again, people are talking about, like, hey, we need to get more people into this. We need new, fresh people, brand new. And that's why I've set up this series on our blog that shows you how to get into it. And I think a lot of brands are doing that because they understand, like, we need more people. And to be honest with you, the world behind me is for a reason, right? It's that we find that the more people that get into fly fishing become conservationists and oriented to protect.
For sure.
So we had Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia, on, and I interviewed him just like this. And he, so he's always thinking about our planet, right? How do we save our home planet? We've got all these, and again, it goes back to fishing. What's going on with steelhead right now? Numbers are not good. Atlantic salmon, there's places in Norway where numbers are not good. So how do we fix that? We've got to protect our home planet, and we can do that with a lot of things. So I always focus. So I think the more new people we get into fly fishing, the more people that are going to think about doing things that are good for the environment.
And I don't think there's any doubt of the fact that fly anglers tend to skew higher towards conservation than non-fly anglers.
But you guys tell me why this is, because, again, we're all fishermen and hunters. Wouldn't you think that conservation, which is just basically protecting our species, wouldn't that be just as high in that space?
It should be. You'd think it would be, but I think back in the day, like my dad, my grandpa, and all that, you caught them and you ate them, right?
Everyone.
That's it.
Everyone.
Let's knock them. And even if there's a limit there, I didn't know that. They didn't even care about limits.
To tell them catch and release.
Catch and release, and how good a walleye tastes, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's pretty tough, you know what I mean? Even when I was growing up, my dad took me brook trout fishing a lot. Now, we didn't fly fish at all, but we conventional fish. But we were out there and we were keeping some brookies. We were not throwing, we threw a couple of big ones back, but if they were like a 12, 14 incher or whatever, 12, 13 incher, we were keeping them for a pan fry. You know what I mean? And that was the way we grew up. That's the way I grew up. And Dad said, you don't throw that back, you son of a bitch, you're going in the creek after it. You know what I mean? So I think it's been bred into us a lot. Now, I think the world of bass fishing tournaments has really changed a lot. I think that's changed everything, you know what I mean, for as far as catch and release. And now, like Ange and I now, he grew up the same with me. They kept fishing, they ate fish, and we do it at lodges still for a shore launch, but for the most part, we're throwing everything back pretty well, unless you want a meal, you know what I mean? You don't fill the freezer up anymore or anything like that. So we just got to, I don't know, it's been a thing, I think, with the conventional anglers. We've kept a lot of fish in our day, so.
You don't hear fly anglers taking the time out of their day to do a shore launch, for example.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just something, it's unheard of.
We will be doing I've done shore lunches 100%. I love eating fish. Okay. I'd fill my freezer if it didn't hurt the populations. Right. I would fill in fact, we had steelhead days when steelhead numbers were really great to be, straight up. And I'm not even sure if I ever said this, but we would fill, steelhead. It's not so again, if the idea being is we want to get our populations healthy enough so we can kill fish. That's the idtea.
The
problem
idea.
is some of these populations are so low,
right?
They need help to get them above that little point. Once they get back up there, let's take some fish within a healthy range.
It's like hunters, right? Hunters are the greatest conservationists.
Absolutely.
But to your point, that's their goal is to get the populations to a point where they can kill them.
That's right.
That's what hunters do.
Absolutely.
Right? So.
And for this, guys, check this one out. So Fred on the Hook A, the podcast that we had, he talked about hunting as well in Quebec. And he said, hey, we're starting to get people out there that aren't going, they're going hunting, but without a gun. They're literally going out there and they're checking out wildlife and all this stuff, right? So, I mean, even that's going on in hunting.
Oh,
wow.
For sure.
That's cool.
There's a transition there happening for sure that we're probably not aware of.
Hey, Dave, do you have anything going on in the U.S. or you're on the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
So on the West Coast in your rivers, we were talking about steelhead, salmon, and stuff like that. Here in Canada, on our East Coast, our Atlantic salmon runs have really been changed and depleted, whatever it is.
Dwindling.
However, there's a lot of angling opportunities that are changing. Striped bass, smallmouth bass, muskie are all in these areas now. Have you got anything like that going on in your area?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, in my area, even though I'm physically in Oregon, I mean, Saturday I'm flying to Virginia to fish the Shenandoah. So I fish outside of Oregon now more than I do in Oregon, but it's happening everywhere. Again, I've interviewed people, whether it's in New York, anywhere around the world. I mean, these things that we're seeing here, I don't want to paint a doomsday picture because I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of good stuff that's coming, but there's a lot of numbers that are on the downturn. Atlantic salmon's one, steelhead, brook trout. And what it is, and we all talk about it, right? Climate change. Yep. The climate is changing a little bit, and it's changing enough that it's affecting these fish that are cold water, that need cold water. So brook trout need cold water. They're one of those species. So, and I've had even guests on the show say, guess what? Brook trout in Maine are going away. They're eventually going to be gone. So get ready for smallmouth bass because those fish will be around.
There's a lot of pushback, pushback out there though from traditionalists, right? I mentioned to the folks at the beginning of this episode, when on my way in this morning, and I live in a very urban area, in the middle of the road, eating a dead rabbit was, for the first time ever, and I've only seen one before, was a golden eagle.
Oh, wow.
In southern Ontario, in the GTA, in the Toronto area. I mean, unheard of. I only say that because it's funny you're talking about whether we call it climate change, global warming, whatever the hell we want to call it. Whatever. There's something going on, and there's change is afoot. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But I think now to that golden eagle. That golden eagle was there because something has changed in its normal environment and it's moving into more urban areas. Mm-hmm. When I hear stories about what's happening on the East Coast here with muskie and bass and stripers, it would be like us looking at that bald eagle and shooting it and saying, "Now get out of here! You don't belong here. You're an invasive species. You're going to upset the ecosystem." It's no different.
Well, some people would do that. Some people would think that way and probably try and do it. You know what I mean? So,
it's no different.
Yeah.
It's funny how we as humans have this predetermined notion of how things should be, and if it's altered, it's got to be bad.
Right.
It has to be bad. Right. There's no other. There's no other.
That's true.
That's big. That guy might be good for your raccoon problem that you have around there.
I'll tell you, he's going to fix all the rabbit problems I got.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a beautiful bird. Do you see many golden eagles?
That's one we don't see a ton of. We see them around. We see lots of bald eagles.
Oh, tons.
Everywhere. But no, and I don't see too many. And I always go back a little bit to the conservation, but I think that's a good positive thing, right? We could go back right now and see where we are, but go back to the mid 70s when we really had some crazy stuff, right? In Silent Spring, Rachel Carson wrote this book that basically got the word out about DDT in the country. And guess what happened? They got rid of DDT, and guess what happened to those bald eagles, which were disappearing? They came back, right? So it does work. We just have to give it time, right? We all, my dad is in his mid 80s. He's really struggling now. And I remember him 20 years ago telling me about when the steelhead numbers were going down. He said, man, I don't have that much longer to live. I can't wait for these things to come back. But to be honest with you, we all have to give it time. This might take 50 years, 100 years. Right. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a process. I remember, and I don't want to stick to eagles here, but I remember Pete and I were in, I want to say Montana. I'm pretty sure it was Montana that years ago when we were shooting Outdoor Journal.
Right.
And you remember that guy taking us to that place where all those eagles were, all those...
oh, yeah.
It was Montana, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
This guy was, we were doing a cowboy riding in the mountains episode.
Nice.
And as a sidebar, one of the guys that we're working with says, you get many bald eagles up where you come from? And I said, well, yeah, of course, yeah, we're in the north. Okay, and you ain't seen bald eagles, he says, till I'm going to show you. And he took us down this ravine and around this bend.
And everywhere.
And we looked out, and I'm telling you, Dave, it was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. There had to be 1,000 eagles
it was
all roosting on treetops by a river.
Weird.
At least 1,000.
You sure they weren't cormorants?
Right.
It was.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, by today's standards, it would be like cormorants.
Yeah,
right?
That's amazing.
All over the shore, they're feeding on fish, right? I think.
Yeah, and he was saying the same thing, that it wasn't that many years ago that you'd never see this, but he says obviously things are getting better, and so I don't know, but it was one of those. Those moments in time, you have that snapshot that sticks here and there.
Yeah.
I also remember those guys controlling the badger population. They didn't like those things in their cow fields, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they dispatched of those babies.
Yeah.
We interrupt this program to bring you the much-anticipated bonus code for the latest Fishing Canada giveaways. This week's code is Striper. That's Striper. STRIPER, all uppercase. And don't forget, that's 1P. Just type that in the bonus code section of the contest and receive 100 free entries towards all our current giveaways. For those who haven't entered yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Head on over to fishingcanada.com while you listen to the rest of this episode. Click contests and sign up for all the latest Fishing Canada giveaways. And now, back to the show. What's coming up with Wet Fly Swing?
Oh man, we've always got a bunch going on. With our content schedule, doing 3 full-length interviews a week. Those are always, we've got. That's just a constant, content machine. But it's hard to look ahead, to be honest with you. I've got a little team as well. So when I do these things now, I do an interview. It goes into the queue. I don't even think about it until it goes live. Everything. But we have lots of events we do. So we do some really cool events around basically doing giveaways. So we do a big trip giveaway every month. So this month we just gave away a trip to Belize. We're doing one for Muskie. We're doing this trip actually May 13th. I'm not sure when this goes live, but May 13th, we're launching a Muskie giveaway. So one person can win that and basically $6,000 worth of gear. We do this awesome giveaway. And then I go out there and I meet up with the people, and then we get some people to meet up with us, and we do a big Muskie trip.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, buddy. That's
so
great.
We do those every month. So if you go to wetflyswing.com, you can check out our most recent thing. The other thing we're really launching, which is I'm excited about, is our pro community. We're calling it the Shop. And so this is going to be a place where all of our listeners can come in online to a place and take all the education further with webinars and just hanging out. Just kind of, my thought is you go into, a local fly shop or your fishing store, have a beer, hang out, talk about fishing, learn to get better at, and then build a trip around the community. So I'm actually creating a community it took me a while. We've had a community, but this is going to be a really powerful one. So I'm excited about that.
So
Good
this
for
is
you.
this is
That's
like
cool.
a live cast, something that you would do on a particular day or time.
A little bit of everything. Yeah, it'll be something where people, any time of the day, people can go and just chat. So it'll be a forum-based thing, but also there'll be these live events. So every week we'll have a Q&A where I come in and answer questions for people. We'll bring in a guru each week or so to talk about a specific topic. The cool thing about these is you launch them small, and you have this really small community, and then you ask the community, what do you want to hear? And then I'll bring in guests that they want to hear.
Right.
They'll be able to interact with these guests, and then they'll be able to put together trips. And then as it grows, as you scale it, right, there's more challenge to keep it personal, but there's things we're going to be doing.
Cool.
That's a great idea.
You mentioned earlier, and I can't remember if you said you did or you're going to do Mako shark on the fly. Did you guys have you done that? Did you?
It's out right now. Conway Bowman.
Give us a little good tidbit of
man.
that. How was
This
that?
is such a good episode because Conway's, I've interviewed some big people. I mentioned Yvonne. I also interviewed the Fawns, right? The Fawns from Happy Days.
Yeah.
He's a big fly angler. But this one was so good because Conway's kind of like the superstar. He literally only guides Mako shark. And if you don't know Mako is the baddest ass shark on the planet.
Yeah.
It eats all the big predators. And people think, how do you catch it on a fly rod, right? And then once you get it, how do you land it? Because these things are 200 pounds, sometimes 800 pounds. And he just described what it's like because these things literally on a fly rod will come out, jump 20 feet in the air.
Yeah.
But the other cool thing about Makos is they will come up to your boat and they will literally hit your boat. They're the big ones.
Aren't they known for actually jumping in the boat when you've got them online?
He told the story about one that did that, but yeah, they're very careful on this so they don't take them out of the water. It's this whole thing. And a lot of times they actually have a quick long line release where they don't even get them to the boat.
Right. That
thing is unbelievable. But it just shows you where fly fishing is at now, is that literally any species, vampire fish in Africa or whatever, South America, you name the species, there's somebody chasing it with a fly rod.
Did you have to imitate a bait fish for those Makos, or did you have to have some ridiculous fly?
I mean, they're using some of these things, like even for muskie, we're going to be using 20-inch flies for muskie.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, and that's the fun thing about fly fishing is that not only that, you talked about the art, but fly tying, actually tying the flies is this amazing thing about half the people have fun just tying flies. So you come up with these crazy, the cool thing is that a lot of people, when they tie these flies, the best flies imitate sometimes like baits. Actual, crankbaits or things that you'd use in conventional.
Right.
So we talk a lot about that. Like a lot of these anglers, some of the best, most known Kelly Gallup and fly fishing are people who were conventional fishing and they took that conventional and made it into fly, right?
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily, it's something worth noting at this point. You don't have to necessarily cast your bait in order to be fly fishing. I know we did an episode trolling with fly fishing gear for speckled trout. For brook trout.
Brook trout, yeah.
So you were, and in your
that
case,
was cool. That was, and you guys got some big fish.
Some nice fish.
Johnny. You.
Like you're not going to cast a 12-inch fly.
Actually the rods you will, but not this far. So you're not casting them like we just had the casting championship guys are casting 200 feet. You're not casting 200 feet, but you can cast a big with the right rod. If it's a 10, 11 weight rod, you can cast it 40 feet.
Did you say 200 feet? Somebody's casting 200 feet?
Yeah, go check this out. The Golden Gate Casting Club, we just had them on the podcast as well. So this is in San Francisco. They have a thing where they measure distance. So the guy, I think the winner had, I think it was like 100, whatever it was, close to 200 feet.
Wow.
That's a long cast.
How about you? How far can you cast?
Oh man, I'm not even close. But I could cast 70, 80 feet, right? I mean, with the normal rod.
That's good. So,
people don't realize. So when we go back to conventional fishing, Ange and I now we're doing a lot of live scope fishing, and we're seeing that target we'll set our thing for 90 feet. You see a target at 70, and you cast out, and you think you're getting to 70, and then it drops at 50. Saying, "Oh my God, wait a second! Now I want to go past that fish. I got to go to 90."
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, like 110, 120 foot cast is a long cast, especially with small stuff.
It's surprising that the perception by most angling folks about the amount of line that they actually are able to cast.
Yeah.
And I say that, once again, back to my retail days, I used to tell people when they're looking at changing, they'd come in with big spools full of line and they wanted to respool the reels. And I would always ask them, how old is this stuff on here? Oh, I don't know, a couple of months. And I said, a couple of months? Well, why do you want to change it? Oh, he says, because I've used it up. I've stretched the hell out of it or whatever. And I say to him, I'd say, do you realize that I would be willing to bet that there is not a bit of line on this reel that has seen daylight beyond 50 feet. Because that's all you're casting, 50 to 75 feet. If you do that every time you cast, you're a champion. But the perception is that line is, every time they cast, it's 1,000 yards of line going out. It's funny. Dave, I wanted to ask you something because you've had some wonderful guests. Is it difficult finding guests for such a niche? And you'll forgive me if I call it niche, but at one digit percentage of the overall angling community, it's a niche. Is it tough finding guests?
Not at all. Not at all. And I have a system set up for it now, but I mean, when I used to do it on my own, it was, not at all, because there's so many people. And one tip for anybody that has a podcast, and I always love helping people. One tip that we used to do at the start is that when we'd have a great guest on, at the end, I would ask the guest, "Hey, this has been so amazing to chat with you. Would you have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people that would love to have a similar conversation like we had?" Boom. Now he gives me a couple of people who are probably amazing as well. And then he helps me put it together. So that's how we started out. But now I basically get all of our guests come from our listeners. So I reach out to everybody. And I say, "Hey, if you have a guest you want on, I will put together a podcast episode." And I'll leave that open right now for your listeners. If anybody wants a topic, if they want to learn about fly fishing, I'll put that together. And because we do so much content through the lives and through our podcast, it's easy for me to do this stuff.
Cool.
Quickly, before we let you go, we appreciate you taking this much time with us, by the way.
Yeah.
Electronics, does it play a role in fly fishing?
I had a bit of a question on this. So I think I told you guys, Ange and Pete, in a podcast that I was out in BC last fall, and we were chrominid fishing with live scope, but we were watching the hatches on live scope and casting to them.
Wow.
But I know he's the guy who I was with out there. He's pretty immersed in the fly fishing community out there, and he takes quite a bit of heat for it.
Yeah. Who is that, Dean?
I won't say his name. But, he's a good buddy of mine. He's a guide out there, so I don't.
Okay.
I'll ask him first.
Like I said, our BC, I just had the live was on BC last night, but like because of Phil Roy, the Stillwater Littoral Zone thing, Brian Chan, all these guys, I'm kind of in that BC range a little bit. But
I'll tell you off air. You might know him.
Yeah, tell me off air. Yeah. But bottom line is his tech is huge. I mean, and Phil calls it. He doesn't call it a fish finder, which is what I used to call it. He calls it what does he call it? Like a depth. It's more to figure out where what's going on below. But these things, these forward facing, is that what you guys are talking about? Forward facing sonar. Yeah, so that is, that's a whole nother level of thing. And I do agree. I think that, I don't know if I agree, but I just think we got to realize that, when this becomes a computer game, and you know what I mean? You get to some point where, it's not quite like fishing with grandpa back in the old days. And maybe the tech is getting so good, but you could look at fly rods too. I mean, like I said, our lines are so good. Do we have an unfair advantage that we're killing, we're hurting too many fish? I mean, that's a question we all have to think about. I don't know if there's truth to that, but I think it's something we need to really think about.
What kind of percentage would, I'm assuming most fly fishing is done from shore or not in a boat. Am I correct in that or no?
Both.
No, really,
Again, it's equal whether you're fishing.
No
there
kidding.
is lots of shore fishing, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. There's a good surprise for me.
We were talking earlier a little bit about like the cost of entry or the barrier of entry to fly fishing. I actually think one of the reasons why more people are getting into it is because it actually seems to be higher now for conventional with all the tech.
Yeah. Oh my God!
It used to be like,
cheap.
oh, the fly rods are expensive compared to spinning and all this stuff, but now like it kind of equals out with all the tech that you need to like really compete in fishing in conventional. With fly fishing, it's almost cheaper to enter now.
Yeah. I mean, you probably don't have 12 fly rods all set up on your boat, all sitting across like that, or say 8 per person or something like that. I would assume you're probably not to that level as fly angler there's yet. But
I listened to all that, and I still have, and I don't mean to disagree with you, Dave. You know a hell of a lot more about the subject than I do. But as an outsider looking into your community, I still say that there is an element of people that fly fish that are the purist, hardcore purist anglers who probably would never use electronics, probably would not have 32 rods all set up on the bow of their boat, probably not have all of the high-tech fly fishing equipment that's available to fly anglers because they're in it for a different reason. And I know some of those people.
I would say, and I hear what you're saying, I would definitely disagree a little bit and just say that, I mean, I think you're right, but we just did a survey of our listeners, and we do these 2 times a year. We send out a survey, we get 30 questions answered. One of them was like, how much conventional fishing do you do, or whatever. And we know that over 60% of our listeners, something like that, conventional fish regularly. So I feel like our audience is really a mix. You know what I mean?
That's probably a good representation, that 60% of fly anglers are not the purist, the ardent, ascot tie, briar pipe, the tweed hat. I'm telling you, I agree with you 100%.
Beautiful cast, Lovey.
I agree. 60%, maybe 70% are not that, but there is an element in fly fishing. The purist.
Oh, for
when
sure.
we talk about electronics or new technology,
they put up a cross that they were vampires.
Oh, right. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's negative. I'm just saying it's real. It's the reality.
I totally agree.
Right?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I will say on just to wrap this point up is that one of the things I've heard from a quote from when we get these surveys from these listeners is they say they love our show because I'm professional but not pretentious. Nice. And I love that because my show it's not about me. My show is about connecting our listeners to amazing guests.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like, and there probably are shows out there that are pretentious and they, in anything. But so I feel like the cool thing about what we do is we really are against that. Our thing is all about bringing in everybody, diversity, inclusion. Let's just bring everybody into fly fishing and let's have fun.
It's just another tool, right?
Exactly.
And what's nice is that you can learn things every time out, whether you're fly fishing or angling. Doesn't really matter. You learn.
Endless.
Which brings me to the closing message. I've learned a few things here today too. So before I let you go, Dave, is there any other guests that you think we should book? 2 or 3 other guests that you can give us some good.
Yeah, right. That you guys should have on. This is amazing. And here's what some of my guests say sometimes. Let me get back to you. But no, I mean, for sure. Here's the thing. I don't know exactly, but I'll bet you 10 or 15% of our guests have been conventional. So we've had these, Gordon Pizer is one.
Yeah, of course.
He's an amazing guy, right? So we had Gordon on. Gordon was amazing. So I've had some of these guys that overlap and they're just fish guys.
Yeah.
So I've got some names I can give you for sure. But like I said, if you could get the Fonz on, that would be a fun one. He's a good guy.
The Fonz, that would be good. Hey, that'd be cool.
Love to have him on for sure. Well, listen, I am thrilled to death that we opened this door, and
me too.
I'm hoping that it develops, like most good anglers, develops into a friendship.
Yeah,
and we have an opportunity at some point to maybe share a boat or a shoreline.
Think of me as your resident fly fishing. If you ever have a question, just ping me. And I'll give you the straight up answer, not some yuppie. I'll give you the straight answer on fly fishing.
Done. Perfect.
Tell folks quickly how they can hook up with you and get more of you.
Yeah. So Wet Fly Swing everywhere. Like I said, wetflyswing.com/OJD. I'm just put it Outdoor Journal Radio. That'll get them to this page, which will give them a quick little. Actually, I have 5 tips from our 600 episodes. I've put the 5 biggest tips from those 600 episodes we've heard most often on that page, plus a couple of videos that will help somebody if they're brand new to get into fly fishing.
Beautiful.
Dave, thank you very much, my friend. All the best to you, and may your fly stay dry.
Oh,
appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. Love the show, you guys.
All right, buddy, thanks.
Man, take care. Fascinating.
May your fly stay dry.
Yeah, that's
good.
Old,
that's kind of a. What do you call that? An oxymoron in the sense that you're casting it into water.
I think you may
stay dry. I like that.
Fly always stay dry.
I like that.
Because part of what you're seeing when you're seeing if they're fishing a dry fly,
they're drying it out in the air.
They're drying it out.
Yeah, they want it to float.
It eventually, no matter how much dope you put on, because they use a dope to keep it floating. No matter how much you put on, after a while it gets soaked with water and therefore starts dropping down below the surface, and you don't want that fly to be
It's like a top water. It's got a leak in it, and the screw holes, and it's all of a sudden filling up with water.
Well,
and the thing ain't working right.
Fly anglers, they do that back and forth.
There you go. Dry it out.
See?
Good exercise too.
It's a good exercise.
Fly fishing can be much better exercise than. Yeah, I think so. Maybe.
That are it. Wonderful program.
Dave's a good guy.
Dave's a great guy. I urge everybody that's watching that is borderline or fence sitting on trying fly fishing, check him out.
Yeah, check out his videos, etc. He says it's not that expensive to get into. Probably cheaper than what you and I do now,
Well,
like you
it's
said.
anything else. You can make it super expensive, or you can make it just. I'm sure there's all kind. Well, there was. I'm sure there still is entry level fly fishing gear all over the place, right? And I used to sell packages for $100.
Really?
Yeah.
That was 25 years ago, 20 years ago.
Rod,
Yeah. So
reel,
now maybe
line.
a couple $100 now wouldn't hurt a guy. I mean, people spend that all the time now anyways on conventional, right?
The line is probably the most surprisingly expensive part.
That doesn't surprise me a bit. You know what I mean? A spool of fluorocarbon's $30 for us, so I can't imagine what good dry
$100 line is
really,
not out of the question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyways, that are it. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate you coming into our world once again and our guest world.
Into Dave's world, because that's not really our world. So it was kind of us stepping out of our world, right?
Yep. Remember, fishingcanada.com, the gateway, the portal to your next fishing adventure. And until then, for the rest of the crew here, Vova over there, Dean Taylor. Dean learned a lot today about how to get guests.
You figure? Yeah. Just a little bit. Dave's influence. He's going to put it into Dean's head, and hopefully he's going to be, he made his 3 mistakes already today, Dean, so he's going to be going home after that, right? But that's off the air stuff. We had a little fun with Dean this morning, so.
He's Peter Bowman. I'm Angela Boyle. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll catch you next time.